When citizens of the conservative South German town of Stuttgart first saw this poster in 1927, they realized that the forthcoming Deutsche Werkbund housing exhibition wasn't going to be to their taste. A brutal red cross defaced an illustration of just the sort of lavish, traditional interior which they would have aspired to. The idea behind the Weissenhof housing exhibition was to display the latest Werkbund thinking on cheap housing. In fact, it turned out to be one of the first and most impressive shop windows for what came to be known as the international style. It split the Werkbund into two parties: the progressives behind Mies van der Rohe, who became the exhibition organizer, and the more conservative majority who still followed the principles of Hermann Muthesius. In 1927, every house built in the Weissenhof Siedlung had a flat roof. The issue of the flat or the pitched roof was just one of those which greatly exercised visitors to the exhibition. And I think most German visitors would have agreed with Muthesius that the Weissenhof solution was a dogmatic one, based on formal stylistic principles rather than on mere utility. Mies van der Rohe and the architects who actually built the houses in the Weissenhof Siedlung would not have agreed. They called the exhibition Die Wohnung, a place to live, and they claimed that their aim was to find revolutionary new solutions to the practical problems of cheap housing. Mies van der Rohe, like Peter Behrens, had the job of building a block of flats rather than a row of terraced houses. The idea of packing 24 flats into a single building in a suburban settlement seemed wrong to many people. They resented this introduction of big city values. Although the exterior gives the impression of standardized units in rows, Mies made up for this with a system of lightweight internal divisions so that no two flats were alike. He articulated the front of the block through the vertical ascent of the staircase windows, which interrupt the floor levels as revealed by the other windows. The back is more informal than the front, being more protected from public view. There are small gardens at ground level, and there are balconies for the living rooms in the flats above. Residents have managed to make them look quite individual. The back has greater depth to it than the front, with these T-shaped projections for the washing shelters on the roof, and the projecting balconies below. On the other side, the way the windows are divided up gives the impression of larger, more abstract glazing strips with less of a feeling of individual rooms behind. The partition walls, which were flexibly arranged between the steel bearing posts, used a variety of more or less impermanent materials. The Oud and the Stam houses had the feel of mass-producible economic housing about them, with plenty of signs of a serious effort to solve the problems of cheap housing. The Oud houses cost almost half as much to build per occupant as these houses here. These are by Le Corbusier. Now, Le Corbusier was just as keen in theory on the idea of mass housing, but his overriding concern lay with monumental architectural form. The house bristles with doctrinaire tenets which Le Corbusier considered essential for all modern architecture. I'm sitting in one of them now, the roof garden. Le Corbusier published 5 principles in 1927, one of which insisted that the roof area should be given over to a terrace. And originally, the whole of this space here was completely open with this concrete sunshade over the top. Since then, part of the open roof has been closed off to provide extra bedrooms. It's a typically attractive Corbusier idea, but aroused much indignation amongst some of the visitors, one of whom remarked that with gardens all around, the roof garden idea was better suited to city blocks of flats. The structure of the house depended on these steel girders, rising up through the whole house and supporting each floor slab. In places, these steel girders are embedded in concrete, and in other places, left open and just painted. With the floor slabs supported by the steel girders, Corbusier was able to carry out his free facade with an endless long window completely disguising all the subdivisions of the rooms inside. It was made more dramatic by the expanse of wall above and below the window. In this house, the long window corresponds to the continuous open space of the living rooms inside. It's typical of Le Corbusier's flats that, having saved space in the living areas with his open plan, he was prepared to waste it here on the ground floor, where there are only a few built-in service rooms, while the rest is left open for sitting in the shade or really just to show off the structure.